How's it going, everyone? Christian Duke from StrengthAddicts.com here with an original guru, the great John Parrillo here at Parrillo Performance, just outside of Cincinnati, Ohio. John, how's it going tonight?
It's going great tonight.
And I want to say tonight because I got here like early afternoon and it was just, had so much fun here. You nearly killed me on your leg press machine and showed me all your facility here, which is absolutely phenomenal. You train bodybuilders in here.
You haven't even seen the other side yet where you make the
No, and you actually showed me a machine where a top-ranked golfer trains, which is crazy. I didn't even know golfers came here, so that's phenomenal. There's so much to talk about, but I guess really what I want to start where I start with everyone, and I guess it's when did you get involved in the weight training game? Like when did you get involved lifting and involved with the whole bodybuilding lifestyle? And you also competed, so maybe also talk to us about who or what inspired you to get on the stage.
I got in my first contest on a bet with Tony Del Vecchio. Okay, he was my friend. He was like the Greek god. He was about, I don't know, 6'1" or something, 6'6'1". Real, I mean, the Roman, real, nice Roman nose. I'm Italian too, but I'm from somewhere and we're the short farmer guys with the big ass and the small shoulders. But he had the super wide shoulders, a little waist, and Mr. Cincinnati was coming up. I said, Tony, you ought to get in Mr. Cincinnati. Tony said, he had a deep voice, I will if you will. I said, okay, you're in it. Well, that was the, let's see, he got 4th that year, and I came in 15th.
Which one?
I came in 15th.
Wow.
So I trained my butt off. The next year, now, they had one class that year. The next year, they had 2 classes, a tall class and a short class. My brother saw my trophy and laughed, that's so short. But he still came in 4th, but I got a 3rd, but we weren't in the same class. So
Gotcha.
I kept going, and that was Tony's last contest.
And that, again, there's so much to talk about. I'm really trying to come with some direction, but you actually, one of the things that I just said before we started to you is, I asked if you were a chiropractor or if you had a history in the medical field. You actually said that you have a history in chemistry, and then you later learned about how the body works and training. And so I guess really what I want to ask you is, when you got into bodybuilding, did you think one day you would be making this kind of equipment or running, a supplement company as you do? Like, really, was your future was pretty much, how did that all come about? I mean, really, because you've done so many things in your career with bodybuilding.
I've probably done too many things at once. So, I never planned it out. I just kind of capitalized on what happened.
Because even with MCT oils, right? I mean, even with Captri and all of this is also, even by today's standards, it's revolutionary. And Scott had said that it was out like at the late 80s, but you actually said you'd been testing it for way before that. What got you involved with that? Like, how did you just stumble upon this, or was it?
We were doing diets, and one of my claims to fame is equating body stats with your how much fat and lean mass, fat-free mass, muscle, whatever you want to call it, you have, equating that to your diet, measuring it, your body weight, how much fat, how much muscle you have, and then changing your diet to make your body fat change and make your lean mass change. And body stat charting is what we do, and we vary the diet and the aerobics and the total calories and the weight training, so we keep getting positive results in your body stats, meaning either gaining muscle or losing fat. So I was the first one to put that together and make a science out of it.
Because you're really not one of these people, one of these gurus that advocate really starving your athletes. I mean, I actually read here one of the articles that you asked me to read, which is, I think, the best article, but I've also done a lot of reading over the years myself, and you've actually had people going in, like Scott was saying, he'd go in at 5,000 calories, and some people as high as 10, whereas a lot of gurus, I'm not sure why, maybe you can expound on it, but some gurus actually almost starve their competitors because they think that's what's necessary to be ultra ripped on stage.
Yeah, what we found out is what we look at is we look at body stats. Whatever else you're doing, you can do. But if you don't eat enough, you can actually lose more muscle than fat. Your body fat percentage can go up. Even though you're losing fat, you're losing more muscle than fat. So we found out, and then everything else slows down. Your body losing, your ability to lose body fat slows down because your metabolism slows down. So by creating the tools, the body stack charting and doing, I came up with a 9-point site, body set, just checking the fat all over the body, equating that to, doing some, mathematical calculations and turning that into percent body fat and percent lean mass. You can, we equate that with what's going on, and then we alter the training and the aerobics and the nutrition. And if you diet too hard, you find out you start losing a lot of muscle, and then actually what happens is you start looking smoother because you flatten out, and then you think you have to diet harder, and you just lose more muscle. So, you're charting these people, and you find out, hey, they're losing all this muscle. Well, let's up the calories so they don't lose the muscle. Then the muscle fills up with a little bit of glycogen. All of a sudden, they have separation again, and they start looking great. And so it was an evolutionary process. It's not something I had. Oh, I have this great idea. Let's just do it, and it's going to work. A lot of this stuff evolved over years. You just read that article that Muscle Mag did on me in June, I think, of 1990. And they came down and they asked me, as well as the diet and everything, they asked me, I was doing what's called, not myofascial stretching, but I came up with the word fascial stretching, where you get a pump and then you stretch the fascia tissue. Well, when that wouldn't work, we'd get a pump, stretch the fascia tissue, and then we'd actually manipulate the muscle, and we call it fascial planing now. I didn't even have a name for this stuff when it came out. I was just doing it because it worked. And it's just kind of one thing leads to another, leads to another, leads to another.
And it really seems like also that, again, I'm not looking to crap on anybody else, but some gurus also are all about the scale or all about the mirror. But with you have your reports.
Well, it's a scale and the mirror. The first thing you do is you adjust the calories by what the scale is doing. And the mirror and what you look like is, that's what the judges are seeing. But you can make a lot more science out of it if you know what's happening to your fat and to your lean mass, and you're adjusting ratios. If you want now, we can probably spend the next hour getting into your glucagon insulin ratios and glucagon insulin axis, and the ratios and what controls it and all that. But it's I don't think you want the interview to go that way. We could do other interviews like that.
For sure, yeah.
It ends up being there's a whole lot to it, but you can put some pretty simple explanations on it that explain 95% of it. And once you understand that, you learn how to manipulate things. So just working with Scott Canazzi, he's really known him for years and years and years. He's the ultimate over dieter, let me tell you, over diet. Well, this year he started coming down. He's like competing, how many pounds heavier?
About 15 pounds heavier.
About 15 pounds heavier this last year, because we got him to eat more. It's like, Scott, it's just like when I worked with my buddy Mike Ferguson. He went to a local guy who he thought knew his body, and he'd always dieting down on way under 2,000 calories the last 6 or 8 weeks going to nationals. He'd just lose 20, 25 pounds of muscle. And Mike, you're not getting any leaner, you're just getting smaller. And his goal was to just place in the top 5 of the nationals so he could pose at night. Well, he finally had a falling out with this guy, and we got him to eat. I think he was 5,000 to 6,000 calories. He's actually doing like a jug of High Pro a day, one of our supplements. And not only get to pose at the night show, he won his class and turned pro. Wow. And that was his 17th visit to the Masters Nationals.
That's phenomenal.
So it's like, no, I don't know everything, and no, my diet isn't a set diet. What my diet is what you do is you adjust the parameters to make you the best that you can be.
Absolutely. And actually, and piggybacking off of what I asked you earlier also, you had mentioned that you were a judge. So when you are preparing people for competitions, I think you also have sort of that other viewpoint. You're looking, you were a competitor, you're looking as a guru, but you're also looking as a judge, and you know what your colleagues on that judging panel are looking for, and maybe some competitors
they're
don't.
looking for size, separation, shape, and all that. Just like the reason we came up with the fascial stretching and then the fascial planing was, and you were talking about it before. You said a good friend of your guy you met, Ken Waller. You really appreciate him, and he's from Louisville, right, where you're at now. And I remember seeing Ken Waller when I went to school in Louisville years and years and years ago. I was training at the first gym I ever belonged to was this health spa,
Yeah.
and he came in one night and he was like, "Holy cow," and actually he threw the lights on and took his shirt off and hit a couple of shots, and he stood in the corner because they had, the health spas back then, they had real soft lighting, but the corridor going into the bathroom had like a spotlight there, and he took his shirt off, hit a couple of shots, and I was like,
He's a big guy too.
yeah, he's a big guy. But guys like Waller, I remember you could see every vein in his legs, but you didn't see much separation.
Yeah.
Okay, right? So the reason we came up with the fascial stretching and then eventually the fascial planing was to bring out more separation in the legs. Even if you're stretched out against the fascia tissue, okay, you might not have any fat there, but you don't have any separation because the fascia surrounds actually all the individual muscle bundles and then the whole muscle, and if all that's stretched tight, it's smooth. So
Right.
why bodybuilders would they would try to get big in the off season, and then a lot of them, if you had a trouble, especially in your legs with the separation, then you'd actually quit squatting 2 to 6 weeks out and just do lunges and extensions and stuff. That would actually shrink your legs down, but they'd look bigger because you get more separation. You could see the individual muscles. So, we came up with, well, why do you need to stretch your legs? Let's start stretching the fascia so that you could get the separation and be a lot bigger. And it gave you a lot more striations and everything else. So.
And that's something that even by today's standards is revolutionary. So when you were doing it then, I'm sure people were like maybe writing you off as maybe almost a quack, who knows? Because whenever someone's doing something different, instead of saying, well, maybe this works, it's easier, I guess, to say, well, just don't listen to that guy.
Everybody came in wanted to do it.
Oh, cool.
And I actually had at one time, because you use these, and especially these knuckles here, I had calluses across here from doing so much fascial.
Oh, so you had the other extreme. Well, that's good.
Yeah, everybody they want, but what they wanted to do, they wanted me to fascial plane them when they hadn't even done the fascial stretching yet to get anything out of that. It's like, no, you got to do the stretching first. So you show them the stretches. With fascial stretching is just getting a pump and then stretching that muscle to stretch the fascia tissue over. And then if you need to plane it, let's say your bicep is stretched and pumped,
Yeah.
you indent it. You always move towards the heart because there's one-way valves in the blood vessels, and then you indent it. So as you move up it, you're stretching that fascia all the way up.
Huh.
I mean, we put probably close to 2 inches on Ron Love's arms one night. Couldn't get him out of the gym. He just kept posing in the mirror, going, damn.
Yeah, we'll make sure Ron sees us out there in Detroit, the 313, for sure.
And I remember when I was playing him too, because it's painful. So that's another thing. I'd be playing him, I go, you keep going, ah!
Yeah.
So one time I went like that, and he started going, ah! I said, I haven't even done it yet. I just went like I was going to, and he was, ah.
That's wild. But you actually have a lot of history, a lot of the biggest names in the sport. I mean, Quinn and Murray. I mean, Mike Quinn. Actually, Mike Quinn's a good friend of mine, and I was wondering if you could maybe talk about him a little bit. You had said that he had stayed at your house for a while, and he actually just recently on Facebook said that you nearly killed him at the gym one time.
No. Mike nearly killed a lot of people in my gym. But I think one time he took a 10-pound plate, and
No
we had
way.
to stop him from doing that. But,
What was it like working with him though? Because I mean, he was getting
Mike Quinn was. I have to say this. Franco Santoriello was probably the most intense person I ever worked with.
Yeah.
I remember one time he was about just over 200 pounds, 205, 204, 205. Incline, in fact, maybe not that one, but an arched incline that I make. Okay, so he was 405 on it. Okay, somebody at that weight. He got 3. You didn't know he was going to get the 4th rep. Okay, 4, 5. He get the adrenaline flowing. 22 reps.
Wow.
Okay, he could do that. He could do that exercise after exercise. Mike Quinn wasn't that far behind. He was intense, but Mike Quinn was kind of crazy at that. Okay, that was Mike. But like I was telling you, two of the best things I ever did for Mike Quinn was I showed him how to hit a front double bicep shot, which he didn't want to hit. His arms were so big. And I actually told him, I said, well, Lee Haney hits it that way. So, and that's the only way he would try to pull it out, try to put his elbows up over his delts and pull his lats out. And that made the cover of every major muscle magazine at the time.
Yeah, I can't get over how many covers you got.
But the biggest, but he didn't get the covers either until everybody was afraid of that guy, and they weren't far off from being afraid of him. And one time he came up with me. I think he came up 3 times. One time he stayed for 6 weeks, and I made him everywhere I went. He had to go.
Yeah.
And he would get out. Mike Quinn in the big dinner plate eyes. He looks at you those eyes, and it look like, especially when he's dieting. He gives you this look, and it's like, oh, holy shit! And people would just like, they would literally back up when he would like step out of the car or something. So I taught him to go. I said, that's Mike Quinn. He's a professional bodybuilder, and he started out. Come on, put your hand out. I go, Mike Quinn, glad to meet you. But he got so good at it. Hey, Mike Quinn, glad to meet you, and all.
That's awesome.
And then actually the photographers started coming up to him. He actually it made him to where people weren't afraid to approach him, and he could stick his hand out, and he could actually go. He just his persona was just sit there and glare back at you. No, good. Hey, smile. Hey, how? Mike Quinn, glad to meet you. And that's when he got all the publicity and got in all the magazines. And not that we got some of them, but he got in all of them.
Yeah, for sure. And you said that he was also he got the world's strongest man title. You said.
No. I say he won the world's strongest man. He was my daughter was 4 years old and going to Montessori school, and she needed something for show and tell. Yeah. So we brought in Mike Quinn was her show and tell and they didn't know what a bodybuilder was or a pro bodybuilder. And we just introduced him as the world's strongest man. Whoa, we let him go in there touching his bicep and stuff.
Yeah, for sure. That's what I was trying to get you to say. Yeah, awesome. And then, of course, also you also had a very good relationship with Linda Murray. You had said her first year. You had talked about that. And Linda Murray.
When I met Linda, she had just won the Michigan, and they showed me pictures, and she was emaciated. And I mean, she had way over dieted. And I looked at her structure, and I said, "You could be Miss Olympia." And she's like, So her goal was to wait 2 years, put on some size, and compete at the national level. I started working on her diet, and her one major flaws was her calves, because she has a real high gastrocnemius. But we did it so we filled out her soleus, which really filled out her calf, and then and showed her how to do those exercises right, and then talked her into. I think the next year she got in North American, got invited to the Olympia, and then won the Olympia. And through that whole time, she was coming down from Detroit to Cincinnati. I was working with her and helping her on her diet, especially as the years went by, she started working with different people. I heard from her less and less, but she was literally calling me on a very regular basis for the first Olympia. And I remember when she hit a place, she was at like 2,800 calories or something, and she was starting to go flat. She thought she had to diet harder. The Olympia was 2 weeks away, and I remember spending 2 hours with her on the phone one night saying, "No, you got to eat more. You're going flat because she was losing her. She didn't have a pump, so she didn't have any glycogen stores. No, you got to eat more. You got to fill out your glycogen stores." So it took me 2 hours explaining, "No, you got to start upping your carbs, upping your calories, so you store more glycogen." And by the time the Olympia got there, I can remember this. I don't know what she remembers, because a lot of times it's two different things, but I remember when the Olympia got there, she was on 4,200 calories. She got a standing ovation. She went backstage. 5 minutes, they wouldn't quit applauding. She had to come back out and do some poses. That's never happened.
For sure.
And she is just about the nicest person you'd ever meet in the world.
Awesome. And I have one other person I wanted to ask you about, just of great interest to me, about was it $300 phone bill or something like that?
Oh yeah, your buddy Dave, our buddy, everybody's buddy, David Lieberman. Yeah, I had my gym, and he was like 16 years old, and he started calling the gym and asking me questions, and then he was like calling pretty regular, and that's when like long distance was 25 cents a minute or something like that. So and then all of a sudden, like 3 months later, I get a call from the phone company saying they wanted me to pay the bill. You know, his mother saw the phone bill and freaked out and said no. And so I said I didn't make the calls. So I guess he got in trouble with mom. And it's like, or I don't know if David blamed it on me, but I said I told the phone company no, I did not make those calls. But Dave was very inquisitive, really wanted to learn, and became you know, from 16, like I said, he couldn't have been that big then. He became a phenomenal bodybuilder.
That's awesome. Now, one question that I ask you often too, one thing that really gets me, aside from the fact that you can actually eat a lot of calories, and that the cap tribe being a big part of that also, and still come ripped onto the stage, is also a training question. Now, when I first talked to you a little bit ago, I told you about how much I would read Mike Mentor's books and the high intensity training, and you really gave me a good earful about that. What's your take? Because there's a lot of people, believe it or not, they may not know it's high intensity, but they're trying to still model themselves after the Dorian, Mike Mentor, Ray Mentor approach. What's your take as far as that whole, you know, couple warm-ups and the working set and training maybe once every week or once every 10 days? I mean, as far as muscle growth, what do you think about high intensity?
Well, that's not high intensity.
Okay.
You show them some videos there. That's high intensity.
Okay.
Just a few sets we did, and that was about that was the start of a leg workout you guys did today.
Yeah.
That was usually
Introductory level.
But
yeah.
if you put a like a, I just talked to some guy, I know him, a friend of mine. He heard, hey, all you got to do is 5 working sets of 5, and this guy lost. He stuck with the program. He lost 15 pounds of muscle.
Wow. Okay.
So it's a lot more than that. Mike Metzer comes from the days when you dieted for a contest on 600 or 800 calories. You did all kinds of reps.
How
and
many
sets.
calories?
600 or 800. You did all kinds of reps and sets. And then after the contest, he would realize when he walked into the gym and now he was eating more, he'd do just a couple heavy sets and grow like a weed. Well, that's because of all the prep work he did getting ready for it. These kids that do that just don't grow. That you got to build a lot of systems in your body. You got to do you not only have to doing a heavy set or two. I mean, you have to tear the muscle tissue, the actin myosin. You have to rip the little myosin heads off or cause muscle damage to want to grow more muscle, and you just can't do that doing a few heavy sets.
Right.
You also got to do your rep sets. You got to add mitochondria to the fast twitch muscle fibers. You got to do your rep sets to increase the capillary density so you can grow the muscle. You have to do rep sets so you're actually using more of the muscle fibers. You start using some of the higher threshold muscle fibers, so you start activating more of the muscle. You got to do a lot of that stuff if you want to grow. Then you got to eat the calories to put on the muscle, and if you don't eat the calories, you're going to you can take in all the protein you want. If you're fairly lean and the body weight is going up, your body's just taking those protein calories and turning them into energy. So
right.
You have to eat the calories too. So it's by doing, so a lot of that stuff sounds good, but what it ends up being is, okay, I'm going to get more out of doing less. That doesn't work. If you do get more out of doing less in the beginning, that's because you were limiting yourself in the beginning, probably by not eating enough for the amount of work you were doing. So then you cut back on the work you're doing, and yeah, you'll put on a few pounds of muscle, but then you got nowhere to go.
Right. As far as something that Scott had mentioned also, and as far as, because you're talking about what sounds good, there's something else that sounds good that a lot of youth are getting into. One of my sponsors is a big proponent of it too, but we can agree to disagree, is the whole idea of it, if it fits your macros. The idea that...
Oh, God, give me a break.
A calorie is a calorie. What do you think about it?
One time I looked into getting a degree as a nutritionist, and that's when they say a calorie is a calorie is a calorie. Well, that was back in the 70s, and I knew from competing in bodybuilding, I knew that was false. I mean, it was like, and that was, you ask any dietitian, and that was the thing. It's like there is such a if you take the same amount of food and eat it all as lard, or take the same amount of food and eat it as lean sources of protein and carbs in 5 meals, or one lard source during the at night before you go to bed. Now, you tell me which one are you going to be leaner on, have more energy, and build more muscle on? Give me a break.
Yeah.
that as long as it meets your macros, that's stupid.
It sounds good.
Or
so
they
kids
might say the macros, but I know a few bodybuilders really got hung up on that and should have been pros because of that weren't. But that's there's a big difference in like you're
I'm chubby.
Okay, you're chubby, but most of that fat
Yeah.
on your body came, just about all of it came from the fat and the food you eat.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's where just about all your fat comes from. If you eat a whole lot of carbs, maybe a whole lot of fruits and stuff like that, a little bit will come from that. But just about all that fat on your body came from the fat and the food you eat. So you can't tell me that if you so the idea is when you eat, they came up with a name for it. We were doing a lot for that, but they came up with a name, nutrient partitioning. In other words, you want to go to the nutrients. You don't want to go into the fat partition. You want them to go into glycogen stores or into building muscle. So you want to partition the nutrients, and nutrient partitioning sounds good, but it's just the fate of where the food ends up in your body.
And even though this will be by far the longest interview, people really want this information. And I'll tell you something.
Well, then do a few more interviews and take one thing at a time.
Absolutely. No, but one thing though that I did appreciate from you also is that I was scared to eat carbs after a workout because I thought like at night, especially I train at night, and so I thought fat was okay to eat. And you're actually saying that carbs are actually what turn into fat. Fat will turn into fat a lot easier than carbs will.
It takes about 2% of the energy to store fat as a fat.
Right.
It takes 20 to 40% of the energy, and this is just rules of thumb, to turn a carb into a fat. It takes 40 to 70% of the energy of a protein to turn into fat. So when they do radioactive, you go look at our sports nutrition guide on the sites, and there's a bunch of scientific stuff in there, but one of the articles becomes, where does the fat come from? When they radioactively isotope your food and have you eat it and see where that ends up, that's where they came up with, hey, just about all the fat on that body is coming from the fat out of the food. Some of it, but not very much, is coming from the carbs. None of it's coming from the protein.
Right.
Protein ends up in the muscle.
But even though you say that it's harder for carbs to turn into fat than fats into fat, you're still pretty strongly opposed to the consumption of fruit, though, right?
Yeah, because fructose, some of it will replenish liver glycogen, but fructose turns into fat in the liver, into the bloodstream as a fat. So, like one of the guys I worked with, Dean Caputo, he was eating 2 bananas a day. Had to have his bananas for his potassium. Well, potatoes have more potassium than bananas. We trade him out for potatoes. He called me 3 days later. He said, "I cannot believe the difference."
Wow.
He said, "I'm just markedly leaner."
Awesome. So, and again, we are going to do a lot more interviews. I want to, because you're right. There's no way we can cover everything. But talk to us again about, or talk to us a little bit about Parrillo Performance supplements, because a lot of companies have sort of a whey.
This keeps in a positive nitrogen balance. This is good stuff. I'm losing 4 pounds a day, but I'm in a positive. No, you're not. Okay.
But you have a full. When I say a full line, I can't really stress that enough, because it's not just a full line of food-based supplements, but you also have cookie mix, brownie mix, puddings.
Yeah, you can even get ready for a contest. We have contest brownies. We have you've had some.
Yeah, I have. They're delicious. I saw the video where you tried to have one as a sample. You ended up eating like 3 or 4 of them. You couldn't stop yourself. But yeah, they taste absolutely amazing. And what's good about them is that a lot of protein brownies, they do taste good, but they kind of have like this dried out kind of taste to them. Whereas on your video, and when I made them with my girlfriend Nicole, I actually had the white spatula, and I went to cut them in the rows just like you did, and I could hear it. I could hear the spatula cutting. That's how moist they were. I thought maybe you had buried a microphone in the brownies, but actually, I could actually hear that. So that's a good thing. Then I put them in the fridge overnight, and in the morning they were still moist. So they never got dried out, which is huge. They taste very chocolatey. Again, but the idea of eating brownies while you're getting in contest prep is just.
But the thing with our brownies and with our cookies, and there's no sugar in them. So, and they're usually high protein, and there's the fat we use. We make them with caprine, which turns into ketones, does not get stored as body fat. So you could eat a brownie or two. If I open a regular bag of cookies and I eat one, I'll eat the whole bag.
Right.
But I can take some of our shortbread cookie mix, make it with caprine, put it in. I can eat 1 or 2 cookies that satisfies me.
Yep.
So that's the good thing there.
And I think too, from people that I've spoken to that are doing like their prep, especially the last few weeks, they would be more than happy with one of those little squares of brownies because they just want something sweet. But because their diet is so restricted and it won't allow it, they'll eat different things trying to get there, and they'll actually sabotage themselves,
Yeah.
and they'll never get that sweetness they want.
We actually, we have a line, we have a very good line, and we test all our ingredients by body stats, okay? So it doesn't matter what it says, it matters how well it works. But we have, do you believe getting ready for a contest, you can have pancakes, you can have cake with frosting and ice cream and pudding and that, and these products are made that strict. They're not just, okay, we'll take some pancake mix and throw a little bit of protein in it. No, you can eat this stuff getting ready for a contest.
What's even really cool to think also is that you could basically use these products year round and actually, I mean, I know this is revolutionary, but you could actually go to a guest posing appearance and actually look like, you know, you're a bodybuilder. Because I've seen some guest posing appearances when people show up, I'm not going to say who, but they look like crap, you know what I mean? But this you could actually eat year round, you know, and if you want the fat, if you're craving it, you could have the Captri, which I know, I guess because of insurance or liability or whatever, you have to put the warning that it may cause stomach issue, but like I said, I'll even have it directly. I have no stomach issue. I'll put in that little metal tablespoon, and I'll just have it before the gym. And I haven't had an issue at all.
Yeah, so. Well, it can, some people can upset their stomach. You start out with a half a tablespoon of meal, put it on your food. You usually get used to it. Guys like you, there's some people can drink it out of the bottle.
But I'll tell you the other thing too is that it tastes good. It tastes buttery. It tastes really,
well, yeah,
really
and there's a lot of MCTs out there. Ours is a pure. In most MCTs on the market are a combination of C8s and C10s. Okay, some of the C10s go into your lymphatic system. All the C8s are digested through the portal vein, go in the liver where they're turned into ketones. You'll burn those even preferentially to glucose. It'll save your glycogen stores.
Absolutely.
So, and we also have a butter flavored one out, so you can actually put the butter flavored one on your broccoli, on your baked potatoes, and it tastes like butter, doesn't it?
It does.
Really
it does.
good.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I guess we're going to do a few more of these. It's getting pretty late, but I really appreciate you taking the time. I think this will be like a half-an-hour interview, and I'll tell you the truth, I'm probably going to watch it 5 times myself. A lot of people are going to watch it. There's something to be said. I think there's bodybuilding fans, and then there's the actual people that are competing and the coaches, and this kind of thing is just to have someone of your stature in the sport is very rare. And again, something that I've talked with Scott and Carrie and a lot of people that know you is that there's a lot of people that really, whoever they're working for or working with on paper, and for whatever reason they're doing it, they'll actually pay those people, but they'll come to you for the actual.
We've had that happen a few times.
So, it's just something really, really cool. And just looking at, every portrait, every clipping, everything has a history behind it. And it's not like the law office where they've got the books in there for the photo op. I mean, this is like the real
all the
deal.
pictures you see on the wall, I do not have a signed picture from Linda Murray, although I do not have a signed picture from Franco Santoriello. I've never asked anybody for a picture. And if they gave me a picture, we put it on the wall, okay? Nothing against them. I mean, while you're working with them, I'm not, hey, yeah, give me a picture, give me a picture, give me a picture. I've never done that. I've never worked with Lee Haney. He was nice enough for meeting me at all the judges. I get. But
you do have a Ronnie Coleman story, though, with the Captri, right?
Yeah, Ronnie Coleman, after he won the Universe, called me up and said, hey, he said, I just won the Universe. Can you put me on can I get into Parrillo Press? I go, yeah. And I said, what's your name? He says, Ronnie Coleman. I said, oh, okay. So I looked it up. He won the Universe. So he had been taking Captri for several years. I looked back and he'd been ordering. So I sent him a case of Captri. I said, hell yes, Ronnie, I'll be happy to put you on.
So you didn't work with that 8-time Mr. Olympia, but another 8-time Mr. Olympia wanted to get on the cover of your magazine and had been ordering Captri.
After he won the Universe, he said he's been ordering Captri for a couple of years. And I don't know, he might even been calling and asking a few questions, but it's like you get that all the time. And Ronnie is Ronnie. And in fact, because I know I know he had a nutrition program because I talked to him a couple of years ago at Power Station Gym, the Arnold's. He says, I'm still using the diet track sheets with my clients.
Wow.
So that was like a lot of years ago. So
Yeah, that's good
so
stuff.
he had the, so I'm saying he had the nutrition program and body stack kit and everything, and he was probably
That's phenomenal.
doing it.
And-
And there's a great ambassador for the sport.
Oh, absolutely, and to this day, and as you are also. But again, I want to really thank you for absolutely everything. This workout was insane. I haven't trained legs in a while, and I've never trained legs like this before, so I really
So
appreciate it.
what'd you think of the new?
I
new
like
piece
that. I mean,
of
one of the other interviews we have to do is actually go and show each piece of equipment or do something like that, especially that bench that Scott did. What was the bench called?
arch bench.
The arch bench. That was pretty phenomenal. The stretch. What was it that I did there? What's this called here?
I don't have a name for it. Just
Yeah, the stretch machine that the golfer uses. That one is
Yeah.
pretty insane. But I really gotta hand it to you. The leg press though, it's just because it was so. Again, I'm not I'm not into the physics or anything of it. I don't even. To me, a lot of that goes over my head. But I can tell you that I've never felt that kind of a pump before. I've never really been against that type of resistance before. One way you had it was high on the positive, one was on the negative, another one I couldn't even explain. It was just something else. I mean, what got me was when you put like 25 plates on the bottom,
20
or
20 extra.
20 extra, and it didn't. I didn't think I'd be able to even move it. But that's just, I guess, the science of it all.
We increasing we didn't increase the weight. We just increased the inertia behind the weight.
See, to me, that's just you might as well be speaking Greek to me right now. But I'd tell you, it was different. It really.
Yeah, that's why I wanted you to feel the difference. We did just the weight, which was what 4 plates at the top, 2 plates at the bottom. We changed the resistance through the range of motion. Then we added 20 extra plates of inertia to it. You could really just feel a difference in the
Yeah.
workout, couldn't you?
And what I kept hearing in my head was Scott telling me that, don't worry, John will never hurt you. Like, he knows your threshold and he won't hurt you. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't believe you.
You're
like,
nuts.
like, I don't believe you. You know what I mean? But it was good. Everything that we did hurt while we did it, but afterwards felt great. One thing I've never done after leg presses or squats or anything is stretch. And that contraption you have there for the
Well,
hamstrings.
or we could have put you on the floor, and I could have.
Well, yeah.
I could have got a workout trying to stretch your legs, but
Yeah.
I made that machine so you can go over there and stretch them.
And you hold patents on a lot of these things, right? I mean,
I got 6 patents on gym equipment. The only people who made money is the patent office, but
yeah.
and I could hold a lot more patents if I wanted to just spend the money to do it. But
Yeah.
what I'm trying to do is just, and the reason we did the leg press, and there's still actually a couple attachments that go on there that I haven't put on yet that'll do different things that physiologically that I haven't even told anybody about. But the reason I do it is just to see what works and what doesn't work. I don't know of anybody that's ever built something that you can change the inertia without changing, with the same amount of resistance.
For sure. And what's good too is that you can see some of the pictures at ParrilloPerformance.com of the facility, which is pretty cool. And what I like about this place is you got your supplement office behind.
Oh yeah, we haven't shown you that.
Yeah, you got your supplement office behind this. You got your kitchen back there. You got your gym here. You got a machine shop over here. I mean, it's like everything is here, right?
Yeah, the leg press took me a year to build. And I had to have 2 vertebrae fused. And in case I died during the operation, I wanted the leg press to be done. And I was like, at 12 midnight, the night before the operation, I was sitting on the floor because I couldn't even stand up. And I was putting the last pieces of the leg press on just so I would have it done in case anything happened to me, so it would be done.
For
Me
sure.
and Gary laughed and said he was creating an Iron Man. It looked like he's building Iron Man. That's what he's.
For sure, that's crazy. Maybe even to drive by this place like at 12 at night and the lights on and he's in here like
The
just
mad scientist.
like one of the Keebler L's or something. That's crazy. All right. Well, again, John, thank you very much for taking the time. We'll do more of these. I'll definitely come back here if you'll have me. I love this place. For John Parrillo of Parrillo Performance, and it's ParrilloPerformance.com, correct?
Right.
For John Parrillo, Christian Duke, StrengthAddicts.com.
Hey, yeah, thank you, and it was great having you here today.
Awesome. Thank you.